In this video, I want to talk about the two kinds of masculinity that I've seen throughout my life. And I've experienced all different kinds of men as far as like who is trying to do what and why are they trying to do it. I've seen a lot of weird power plays that men will try to perform. I've seen a lot of good men and I've seen a lot of, I would say, evil men. And the evil ones will, I would say, be more covert usually in how they interact with everybody. They don't overtly come off as evil, but they disguise their evil deeds in a way that is going to be portrayed to the public as the good kind of person that they are. So, what are these kinds of characteristics of the good ones and the bad ones, per se? Well, some of the good traits that we can talk about, let's talk about the good stuff first, right? Some of the good traits that are really standing out to me are number one is stoicism, number two is some kind of form of capacity to build or create. Number three is the ability to destroy, but not necessarily destroying for the sake of destroying. That's a big difference. And I learned this particular characteristic from my martial arts instructor. I was a student for a teacher that practiced and taught Northern Shaolin Kung Fu for almost a decade. And he was so he was so great for me as a role model in some way. He was perhaps one of the very few positive masculine role models I had in my early years. And I was with him from about, I was almost 10, maybe 9.5, 10 years old to about 16, 17 years old. And so I was with him for a few years, a number of years. And I was able to get my black belt in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu with him. And he had this particular quality about him in which I could sense that he knew the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And he had a certain kind of energy that he brought to the table where you knew that he was with you. Like he was very present with you. It was almost like his presence was so comforting, but so kind of intimidating at the same time because you knew that he was capable of beating your motherfucking ass if you really get out of line. And he would do demonstrations and he would never be showboaty about it too. That's another quality of the good kind of masculinity. They're never really showboaty about the things that they do that are good. They just do the good things. And that is another quality that I think is very important to have. I would say another would be a form of industriousness and perhaps openness, and in some way a form of gentleness. It's that rough and rigid exterior, but having the capacity to be gentle. And this is something that I've seen with almost every single masculine role model that I've had, like in books or even with like on YouTube or anything like that, where we have this kind of unique exposure to all of these different kinds of men out there. Now, as far as the bad ones per se, it's not necessarily dominance, but it's like the desire to control, because dominance I would say is more of a good person, of a good male trait to have, is dominance and assertiveness. But on the flip side with the evil, the bad, it's more of the inclination to be predisposed to the nature of violence and have the proclivity to be involved with forms of being that involve the shadow in the ways to try to have a form of praise for oneself for no particular reason other than they desire the praise. Now, for example, I had a boss one time, and this man, whenever he was in the room, he would always stand with his legs super, like super wide whenever he was trying to make a point. He was really trying to put on this. It was obviously false. Like, and everybody in the room knew it was false, and we all had to like pretend and like play stupid that we were not like we didn't know what was going on. And he always had this like super it wasn't like a Napoleon complex, because Napoleon, I would say Napoleon Bonaparte, because Napoleon, he was a relatively short guy per se for a conqueror, but he never seemed, at least in all of my writing, in all the writings that I've read and everything that I've heard about him, and he never had this like quality of confidence. Like, he never was overconfident in his abilities. He was always very sure of what he could and could not do. And even though he made mistakes, he was always sure that when he did make the mistakes, he was making a calculated decision. The kind of evil men out there are not going to be calculated. They're going to perhaps be bold, yes, but they're also going to be rather stupid. And a lot of the things in which they do that are stupid, they think they're being smart. These men think that they're acting in a way that is, it's almost like, how would you say it? It's like the enticing glimmer of intelligence. Some people, like some evil men, have a vast amount of knowledge, and they have so much capacity to recall information, and their intelligence is just off the charts as far as their intellectual ability. But their compassion is usually lower, and they're usually, I wouldn't say they're neurotic per se, but it's like they know that they're burning the candle at both ends in their life, and yet they refuse to see the consequences of that as they go further and further. And some perhaps even do know that. Like, some people do know that they're burning the candles at both ends, and yet they still have this. They want to be. They want to be the glory of God. They don't want to be involved with the glory of God. I think that's a good way to think about it. Now, those are like some attributes that I can think of just kind of sparingly. And I wrote a couple of them down beforehand just because I was thinking about this topic today. And there was a couple of Bible verses that I want to address, and then we'll go further on in the topic. So this is from Proverbs 24. Where was this? 24:5, that's where it is. A wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increases strength. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in the multitude of counselors there is safety. And wisdom is too high for a fool, and he openeth not his mouth at the gate. So basically this is saying that this is a part of the stoic quality of the good man. He knows when to shut his mouth, but he also knows that his circumference of knowledge is going to be able to bring him to depths of the unknown that most people in this kind of circumference of knowledge don't have. So it's going to be very vital for a man, especially a good man, to know the value of knowledge. Because knowledge, sometimes you need knowledge to have wisdom, but you don't always need knowledge, or you don't always need wisdom to have knowledge. And that's where the hyper intellectual or the hyper scholar that is actually an evil person comes into play. They think that because they have all this knowledge, they have wisdom. They don't. A wise person is going to be specifically a man, because that's going to be your bread and butter as a man. If you don't have wisdom, then there's not going to be a lot that you can offer as far as leadership to the world. Now there's another verse here. It is Corinthians 16:13 is where it starts. It says, "Watch ye and stand fast in the faith. Quit you like men and be strong. Let all things be done with charity." So in the Bible, it also says that charity is going to be one of the ways that you can repent. And it's also going to be one of the ways that you can grow closer to God. And it's going to be one of the ways that you can actually please God the most is through charity. Well, why is that necessarily? Why is it the case that by charity you're going to grow closer to God and you're actually going to repent? Well, it's because you've lived a certain way of life for so long that now what's going to happen is that if you want to actually grow closer to God, you have to learn how to give. And one of the reasons I've been doing these YouTube videos for nearly over a year now, actually, is because in one way, it's to bring awareness and attention to the happenings of the world, because I genuinely believe that as a man, it is our duty as godly men, as masculine men, to know what's going on in the world, to communicate together, to encourage others, to build their strength and to build their courage and to build their boldness, and to provide a place for each other in which we can build together with our brothers. And I wasn't really specifically going to target anybody in these videos as far as my audience is concerned. I just started making videos and see what's going to happen. And I've been surprised and pleasantly surprised of the women that have been involved in this channel. And the women that have talked out and reached out to me have, for the most part, been fairly respectful, fairly kind, and very feminine for the most part as well. And even if they don't like everything that I have to say, there's still a quality of respect that I very much appreciate, because it's taken a lot of work to get to where I'm at, and it's taken a lot of life experiences, a lot of sacrificing, a lot of heartache, a lot of hurt, a lot of everything to get to this place. And I know women don't necessarily care about that kind of stuff, talking about it at least. And men, this is something that you have to understand, is that women don't care about like how you struggled. They just care about where you're going now, and if they can come along or not for the ride. And that's okay. That's I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's the way it is. And a lot of the times we men want to so fixate and focus on making sure that the other woman or the other men in our life see the kind of pain that we've gone through, that we forget that nobody really cares. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm just saying that a lot of the times you're going to get to the point to where you realize most people just do not give a rat's ass. That's just the way it is. And so over the past 2 years since I started to follow Christ, something that has just been compounding upon itself more and more each day is the ability to just not care. Just not care about what other people think. And I'm just going to say what's on my mind, because hell, at this point, what do we have to lose as men anymore? What do we like really what do we have to lose? They've practically taken, and when I say they, what I mean to say is that, look, it's no secret that we've been lied to by the government. But a lot of people are still waking up to the fact that we're being lied to by the universities, all of the education system, all of the different kinds of branches of community in each of our communities. We're being lied to by the churches. In fact, I've had a revelation recently about the churches, and this is one of the reasons why I do not go to church anymore. And I don't ever plan to ever again, really, after seeing this kind of revelation. But it was almost like I saw the church in a meditation. I saw the church, and the church had transformed into a, how do I say this? The church transformed into a playhouse. But the playhouse was not for children. It was for adults. And the playhouse itself was not necessarily the place to take children. It was a spiritual playhouse for adults. There was no more actual teaching going on in churches anymore. And so when I had this revelation and this vision in my meditation, it was a long time ago. It was like 8 months ago or 9 months ago or something. I stopped going to church. I guess it is December now. I stopped going to church in March this year. So it was like 8 months, 9 months ago. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I couldn't look at the people around and think to myself, these are people following Christ. Because what they're actually doing is they're trying to fit in somewhere. They're trying to get a community. And I understand that. And part of the reason I'm attempting to do these group sessions with you guys, which the next group session is the Intimacy Support Group on December 10th at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so just in a few days from now. And the reason I'm doing these group sessions, and if you want to sign up, there's a link in the description box below for regalchange.com /Regal Academy or Regal Change Academy. And the reason that I'm providing, at least attempting to provide these group sessions is to give people the opportunity to have a community. And I'm aware that most people do go to church and most people do these things because they want a community. One of the other good qualities for a man is his ability to be independent and provide for himself and protect himself. He has the capacity to protect himself and provide for himself. He has plenty of resources. A man that can't be independent, I don't think is a man at all. There's a great poem by Charles Bukowski called "The Beautiful Man with the Blue Eyes," or it's just "The Beautiful Man." But anyway, if you look it up, the poem, you'll see it. And I recommend listening to the YouTube version of the person speaking because it's a very good speaker narrating the poem. And in the poem, it basically talks about this man who is the most beautiful man these children have ever seen, that stumble upon this house where this guy lives by himself, and he's got these beautiful blue eyes, though, just shining like fire. He's alive. You can tell that he's alive. And the boys and the children that are there, they can see that this man is like something different. Like this man is a real man. But he's all alone. but he's all alone. Why is that? Well, it's because a lot of the times I genuinely believe, and this has been the case with almost every single real man that I've come across in my life, which have been far and few and in between in my community or out in the physical world apart from YouTube and hear people meeting people in the comments or in my consultations or anything like that. It's like the real men out here are very few and far in between. They're going to break their own boundaries just to seem like they're with the people. And it's like, that's the least manly thing that I think you could do. Think about Elon Musk, what Elon Musk just did. I have mixed opinions on what Elon Musk is trying to do. However, what he did just barely at this business convention where some of the biggest corporations in the world were. He openly said when asked about the advertising, why, like, because all of these big companies around the world, like Disney or anything like that, they're actually boycotting Twitter right now. Well, X is what it's called. They're boycotting X. And they're boycotting X advertising, which is primarily how Twitter makes, I did it again, how X makes money. So the fact that X is actually going to lose money because of these boycotters that don't like that Elon Musk said something about supporting anti-Semitism or whatever. And I mean, that's like $75 million or whatever in revenue going down the drain. And so Elon Musk basically said, let the chips fall where they may. And if people are going to blackmail me using money, well then fuck you. Go fuck yourself. He said that verbatim. And so I was just astonished by this man. That's a masculine leader right there. He's building, he's creating a legacy, he's independent, he's giving the middle finger to all of those evil people out there. And he even said himself also that these corporations are disguising evil or using, how did he say it? He's like they're being evil disguised as like acting good or something like that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about as well, is especially narcissists, they will do anything and everything to make sure that they don't have to blame themselves or have anybody to point the finger at them. It's always going to be somebody else's fault. It's always going to be somebody else. And it's time that we as men really take a hard look at ourselves and our lives, because a lot of us come from broken homes. A lot of us come from places where we've been cheated, we've been lied to, we've been manipulated, and we're just tired of it. You know, we're just sick of trying to be the nice guy. We're sick of trying to be the person that leads people out of the ditches of hell, and they're not like, we're showing them we're showing them the promised land, and they want to stay in the ditch of hell because it's more erotic to them and it's more pleasurable for the time being, because it's actually hard to get out of the ditch of hell. It takes a little bit of work. You got to work up a little bit of a sweat, not just physically, but spiritually. And they don't want to do that. Men and women, they don't want to do it. There have been men, like I would say 80 to 90% of the people that I've done consultations with, they are actually doing the work. They're willing to like put the work in themselves. The other 10% or so, they do a few sessions, or they do a session and then they fall off and they go right back to everything else. And I don't want to see that. But there's nothing that I can do if you don't want to help yourself. There's nothing anybody can do if you don't want to help yourself. It's time that we as men start putting ourselves first. And I genuinely believe that if we were more assertive in what we wanted and we actually acted in a way that supported our values and our principles, the whole world would change. It really would. And I hope this video finds the people that need to hear it and the people that need to hear this message. And with that being said, I hope that you all have a blessed day, a blessed evening, and peace be with you. Till next time.